I've decided to do something a little different in today's video. Today, following UFC 297's main event this past Saturday, I'd like to do a resume review of new UFC middleweight champion Dricus du Plessis. A lot of people believe the champion going into that fight, Sean Strickland, deserved to walk away as champion just the way he came in. And while I can't argue that or disagree with it, they did have a very closely contested fight that could have gone either way, hence the split decision with 48-47s going each way. According to his Wikipedia page, DDP began training in martial arts at the age of 5, first picking up judo, before eventually starting wrestling at 12, and then kickboxing 2 years later at 14. In contrast to martial arts training, du Plessis also played rugby throughout his schooling tenure. 3 years after picking up kickboxing, at the age of 17, du Plessis won the Wako Junior World Championships in 2012, becoming South Africa's first ever wako medalist in doing so. Unfortunately, I looked all up and down the internet for his amateur kickboxing record, but never was able to find it. Nonetheless, du Plessis would make his professional mixed martial arts debut in July of 2013, fighting his first 12 bouts for the South African EFC promotion. He would win his first 4 pro bouts prior to his first defeat against the 11-2 Gareth McLellan, who made the second defense of his EFC middleweight title that night. Du Plessis would win his next 7 straight contests en route to becoming both the EFC welterweight and EFC middleweight champion over the course of the next 3 years. This brought du Plessis to 11-1 as a professional, and it was now time for him to make his KSW debut against one of the scariest fighters outside of the UFC, Roberto Soldic. Soldic was 13-2 as a professional at the time. He was on a 7-fight win streak, all 7 wins coming via knockout, including 5 championship bouts, and his latest defeat at the time came to former Bellator welterweight champion Yaroslav Amosov via split decision. Du Plessis shocked the community with his second-round knockout of Soldic that saw him capture the KSW welterweight championship in jaw-dropping fashion. Next would come their immediate rematch, however, where Soldic got back at the South African and reclaimed his belt via third-round knockout himself. Including this rematch, Soldic has now gone 7-1 with 6 knockouts since losing to du Plessis, 4 of those also being world title bouts. And still at just 28 years of age today, hopefully Roberto Soldic gets called up to the UFC here at some point. Following defeat to Soldic, du Plessis would win his next 2 straight, defending his EFC middleweight title in one of them before being called up to the UFC with a record of 14-2. Du Plessis would make his UFC debut in October of 2020 against Muay Thai black belt Marcus Perez, who he KO'd stiff at 3:22 of the opening round. This was followed up by another KO victory, this one coming at 1:41 of round 2 over Trevin Giles. It wasn't long after DDP's sophomore effort with the promotion that he entered a grappling tournament back in 2021, where he faced 5 different Gracie Barra students and submitted all 5 of them. Following back-to-back knockout wins to begin his UFC tenure, du Plessis would battle to a decision for the first time in his career against longtime middleweight staple Brad Tavares. After losing the opening round, du Plessis put beautiful combinations together in the second and third to secure the universal 29-28 unanimous decision victory. Even though we'd seen Tavares get finished before, and du Plessis couldn't do it, this was still a very impressive performance by him. He showed us he can make adjustments, he showed us he can keep his composure when he's down, and he showed us he can go 3 rounds if need be, something he'd never done before. For instance, he was now 17-2 as a professional, following the win over Tavares, and both of his losses came via third-round stoppage. Du Plessis' senior effort with the promotion came against former welterweight title challenger Darren Till, and man, what a fight this turned into. After a certain 10-8 round in the first by du Plessis, where he absolutely crushed Till with heavy punches along the fence, the fight began to get competitive in round 2. Till and DDP both utilized their slick striking, though du Plessis was taking Till down at will every time he tried. Eventually, in the third and final round, du Plessis secured a takedown right into mount, where Till immediately gave up his back and was submitted with a neck crank at 2:43 of round 3. Du Plessis followed this up with another very impressive finish, this one coming over longtime top 10 ranked Derek Brunson, who had also just submitted Darren Till in round 3 of their fight a year earlier. Though du Plessis was taken down early in this fight, and even though he was cracked early on by heavy punches, he didn't get discouraged. He got back to his feet and started piecing together heavy combinations as the opening round came to a close. He continued his pressure and heavy-handed attack in round 2, where he eventually dropped Brunson and rained down thunderous punches from top position until Brunson's corner threw in the towel at 4:59 of round 2. By this point, people were starting to see how good Dricus du Plessis really was. A lot still weren't sold on him being the best or one of the best, but no one could deny he was good. It's just that with his awkward style of striking, many of us weren't quite convinced yet. We carried this mentality into his fight with former UFC middleweight champion Robert Whittaker, a fight that took place in July of last year. Pretty much all of us thought Whittaker was the clear number 2 guy in the division behind then champion Israel Adesanya. I mean, hell, he had been for 5 straight years. And we were all convinced DDP would suffer his first octagon defeat in this fight. Whittaker was just too good and too technical for someone like du Plessis, right? Well, wrong we were. Du Plessis absolutely dominated Whittaker, taking him down with a beautiful head throw in the opening round and raining down vicious punches from top position until the bell sounded. He then hurt Whittaker badly in the second round with a jab. And a few follow-up punches later, du Plessis was being pulled off the former champion, with a knockout win at 223 of round 2. Everyone in the MMA community couldn't believe their eyes. Dricus du Plessis had just dominated and stopped Robert Whittaker. He must have ruined so many parlays that night. With this win, du Plessis was thought to be next in line to challenge Adesanya for his throne. However, the fact that he couldn't turn around in 2 months when Adesanya wanted to next defend his title, the UFC brass decided to give the shot to Sean Strickland instead. This was pretty much like the DDP Bobby Knuckles situation. No one in their right mind was picking Strickland to beat Adesanya. Adesanya was a 75-5 pro kickboxing champion who had just reclaimed the middleweight strap, and Strickland is one of the more basic strikers we've seen. Alex Pereira had just knocked him out recently, and we all thought Adesanya was going to easily pick him apart at the very least. But Strickland put on a pressure that Adesanya just couldn't handle, picking up the 49-46 unanimous decision across the board. Now it was time for du Plessis to get his title shot, which went down at UFC 297. Strickland had a very good opening round. Round 2 was quite close. Rounds 3 and 4 went to DDP, and round 5 was Strickland's. Strickland did a great job of making du Plessis miss on his punches and also checked every leg kick thrown his way for the first 10 minutes. However, as the fight went on, du Plessis did end up landing some good leg kicks, body kicks, a couple clean head kicks, and a number of hard punches to the head of Strickland. He took a lot of damage himself too, though his punches seemingly had more impact than Strickland's. By the end of the fight, they were both busted out. Both of du Plessis' eyes were swelling up, and Strickland had a nasty gash on his face. Du Plessis did, however, secure 6 takedowns to Strickland's 0, though Strickland didn't accept bottom position a single time and got right back up each and every time. This was a very, very close fight that could have gone either way, but 2 of the 3 judges thought du Plessis did enough to become champion, and so he did. So let's take a look back at our new UFC middleweight champion's career. At just 30 years of age, having turned 30 just 8 days ago, mind you, Dricus du Plessis is a Wako Kickboxing Championships gold medalist. He's achieved the rank of 2nd degree black belt in kickboxing. He's an EFC champ, having won the title at both 170 and 185 pounds. He's a former KSW welterweight champion. He's the current UFC middleweight champion. He's gotten 4 performance bonuses in his 7 UFC fights thus far. He's 7-0 in the UFC, 21-2 overall as a professional with 19 finishes, including 9 knockouts and 10 submissions. He's 17-1 in his last 18 with a win over that lone defeat, and his last 2 wins both come over world champions. Yeah, I think it's safe to say he's one of the best fighters on the planet today. Even with his awkward style where he crosses his feet, squares up his hips at times, and blitzes forward with unusual combinations, he's a physical specimen at 185. He hits hard as hell. He's got good timing. He's good at finding his opponent's chin. If he can't right away, he seemingly always does make that adjustment and end up finding his opponent's chin. He has one of the best ground games in the division, and he's actually a lot more technical than most of us ever gave him credit for. It appears du Plessis may make his first title defense opposing former 2-time UFC middleweight champion Israel Adesanya next, perhaps at UFC 300. Regardless of which event that takes place at, how do you see that one going? Does Adesanya become the only 3-time middleweight champion in UFC history, or does du Plessis make the first defense of his title against the number 2 middleweight of all time? If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I think I'll continue doing these resume reviews on my channel going forward.